Hi and welcome back to Dizzy Sew and Sew. Today we're going to look at something a little different, a little bit of hand sewing, which you know I hate. But we're going to make some espadrilles today, and I've got my wonderful assistant and my tutor today, Tamara from the Great British Sew Bee, to show us how it's all done.
Hello! So what we're going to be doing today is making espadrilles. You can get the soles in a pack, Prim sell them. When you get the package, it looks like this. So these are your soles, that's the bottom side of the espadrille, and you'll also get a little instruction and a pattern sheet. So the first thing I would do is to highlight the instructions in English, and then because the pattern is on both sides of the sheet, you're going to need to trace it. So lay a piece of the paper on top and then trace around, and then cut your own little patterns out. This bit here is for the toe, and this bit here is going to be for the heel. So once you've got your pattern ready, you can start to look at what you're going to need to make an espadrille. So to make your espadrille, you're going to need some fabric to start off with. So the kind of fabric to use, I would suggest something a little bit robust, maybe a denim, maybe a heavy cotton. This is a nice heavy cotton. It's going to take some wear and tear. You also need fabric for your lining. So with the lining, it's a chance for you to maybe add in a little bit of colour. So you can use, for example, something like this that goes with the upper part of the shoe. And if you want to, you can also add on a little bit of trim. You know how I love my trim. So it incorporates using a bit of hand sewing, because what we're going to be doing is sewing the material parts on the sewing machine. So you'll need your sewing machine, and to attach the top of the shoe and the heel to the sole, we're going to be using hand stitching. We're going to use blanket stitch. So we want some nice thick thread. I've used embroidery thread before on these ones, which is just as good. We also need an embroidery needle or a woolen needle that has a nice big eye to get the thread through. And that's how you start. So if you go online, when you have your instructions inside your box of your espadrille soles, it will show you that there actually is an instruction manual online. So if you go online, you can actually print out the full instructions. And when you're cutting out your pieces, it does say you need to add on the seam allowance. So David's added on 1 centimetre, and if you look at mine on the right, I've just added on 5 millimetres. So you decide how much you want for your seam allowance. The first stage, once you've cut out your pieces, is to sew them together on the sewing machine. So we're putting right side to right side, and I'm going to sew all along the edges, but I'm going to leave a little gap here, a little space here, so that I can turn it inside out. So we'll do the same as well for the heel. So take your lining and your upper part of fabric, right side to right side, sewing along the edge, around the other edge, and then leaving a gap here too so you can pull the fabric through. So now I've sewn all the sides of my pieces. Any corners I'm actually going to trim off so I can get a nice point. I'm going to cut these corners off, and then I'm going to pull it all the way back through this hole here, so we're back on the right side. And if you know which edge of your piece is going to be touching the actual sole, try and make that little gap that side, because you're going to be hand stitching it. It'll be hidden if you put it on the edge that's going to be sewn onto the espadrille sole. Good. So I'm going to fold these under now, cut these bits off first, and grab hold of my hand sewing needles and just sew that gap up, and I'll do the same with all the other pieces. So I'm just sewing my holes closed now by hand. Now I've pulled it through and I've also ironed it, and I'll do the same with the toes and with the heels. So I'll just fold in the seam allowance and then stitch that closed. Okay, so the next stage, once we've sewn up the little hole that we've pulled through, is to actually pin the heel onto the sole. So taking your pins, I suggest that you start at the back first, and you're measuring up the edges so they're level, and then you start to pin the heel piece down. Ready for your blanket stitch. So you may find you need to adjust it slightly. The next stage is to attach your heel to the sole of your espadrille using a blanket stitch.
Okay.
So this is how you do your blanket stitch. So the next stage is to pin the toe onto the espadrille sole, just as we did with the heel. So now I'm happy with my positioning of the toe. I'm going to carry on my blanket stitch all the way around the toe until it meets the other side. So to finish your espadrille off, we're just going to hand stitch these two side pieces together, pinning it first, So David, here we have the fun espadrille. As you can see, nicely decorated, bit of a contrast there. And there are plenty of other things you can do with the espadrilles. Maybe you could add a bow on, you can actually keep the outer fabric all the same and have the lining different. Maybe even taking the heel off and adding an ankle strap. I've just used some Chinesey type fastenings here. And then you can also think about maybe cutting the toe off, having some cutouts down the side, maybe even bringing some laces in using the eyelets here. What do you think, David?
I think it's brilliant. I think the espadrilles are just, really versatile. You can make it your own, give it your own personality, and everyone's going to say, "Where'd you get that from?" And you say, "It's unique. It's yours." Thanks for watching Dizzy Sew and Sew. I hope your espadrilles come out as well as ours. Thank you, Tamara, for helping show me how to make these fantastic espadrilles.
Pleasure.
And don't forget to subscribe.
See you soon.